Hello everyone, welcome to a new chess video. I've discovered an opening that's going to fascinate you. What you see here on the screen is a variation of the bishop's opening. Very easy to play and very hard for your opponents to stop because they can make too many mistakes. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to get here, how to play this opening very simply, and how to punish all those mistakes the opponent might make to end up winning the game. First, how did we get to this position, chess teacher? Look how simple it is. We play the king's pawn, right? Double king's pawn, and now we start with the bishop's opening. Very well, now they can play many options against us, and in fact, what I'm going to explain works against most of them. However, what do they play most when we apply this bishop to c4 in the bishop's opening? Well, it's very simple. Normally, when we play knight to f3, I'll explain it simply so everyone understands, we're attacking this point. That's why they're forced to defend. And that's why white has the initiative. They attack and black defends. Very well. When instead of attacking, we play bishop to c4, we're giving our opponent the chance to attack instead of defending, okay? This opening could also be used with some variation if they play knight to c6, okay? But normally they play knight to f6, because now they're the ones attacking. And this is where, instead of defending this pawn, we're going to play d4, the queen's pawn. And this is where it all starts. And it looks like we're giving away a pawn. They can also capture here. They can defend with knight to c6. They have many options. The good thing is, I'm going to show you how to play against all of them. And you'll want them to play every variation, because you'll see you're going to like them a lot. The most logical one of all, which is it? We're giving away a pawn, chess teacher. What happens if they capture it, right? Well, very well. This is the main variation. What happens if they capture the pawn? What happens is that now we're going to continue with pawn takes pawn. That is, first of all, we're no longer a pawn down because they've captured one, it's true, but we're attacking another, so it's not so clear that you have an extra pawn. And here, in this position, there are too many mistakes. Like, for example, the easy knight to c6, which I'm sure many of you are thinking of. It develops a knight, attacks a pawn. This is already a serious mistake, and it's very easy to punish. All you have to do is sacrifice this bishop on f7, check, drawing out the king. If they don't capture, even better. Notice that just not now, because we have this knight, but there would be tactical themes after kicking this knight out, and on top of that, we'd have an extra pawn. So they must capture this bishop, and once they capture it, we come in with the queen, check, and we're going to gobble up this knight wherever it goes. Conclusion, if they play a knight to c6, well, we simply end up with an extra pawn. Plus, we take away the opponent's castling, meaning it's a totally winning position. But what's up, chess teacher? I'm going to go back just a bit, because that way we spend 20 more seconds, it's true, but the line becomes much clearer, right? Bishop c4, we start with the bishop's opening. They play knight f6, attacking this point, right? And now, simply, what are we going to do? d4. Look how simple it is, right? You can't go wrong. Well, simply here, when they capture us, we're going to capture here. And we've just seen, that knight c6 was a mistake, but there's another move that's been played against me a lot that's an even bigger mistake. What I do when I make these videos is, first I study the opening, then I test it in my online games, and see what my opponents play most. So here I'm showing you how to punish these mistakes. And a move that's been played against me a lot, which is a very serious mistake, is d5. What they're doing here is developing their center pawn while defending this knight, and while defending this bishop. They don't realize that, of course, we've deflected the queen's pawn, and now two pieces are attacking this point, meaning we were winning a pawn. And why am I telling you this if it's so easy? Well, because I assure you that they're going to play d5 against you. And here, some of you will be tempted to take en passant. I know you, especially in blitz games. Just so you know, if they play d5, you can capture this pawn, plus you attack this knight, and when it retreats, it doesn't end there. You have a way to finish the game, not just by winning an extra pawn, right? The way is very simple. Like this video if you enjoy this type of content. If we reach 300 likes, I'm going to bring you right away an opening I'm studying that's spectacular. So come on, how do we finish this off for good? Well, with the same bishop sacrifice, although now it's very different, and I'm going to explain why. Notice that this bishop sacrifice comes up very often in this opening. In other words, if you know the concepts well, you'll be able to apply all these quote-unquote traps that this opening has. Or rather, traps mean your opponent has made a mistake and we're going to punish it. Simply here, when they take the bishop, we'd win the queen for free. That's why they can't capture it. So they absolutely have to come forward, and now it would be the other bishop that would enter, and we'd end up winning the queen for free again, since here we'd force them to take this pawn and simply bishop takes queen. We'd be left with a free queen. It's that simple. What happens if they play d5 against us? They lose the queen. Now you're gonna be amazed. Do you know what the most played move is here in this position when we play this opening? Well, it's not knight c6, which we've seen how to punish, nor d5, which lost the queen after bishop takes pawn. Do you know which one it is? Bishop c5. They develop their bishop and take advantage of having a knight here in a good position to hit us with this massive double attack. What they don't know is that we're going to counterattack with a triple attack. Bishop c5 is also a serious mistake. As you can see, it's way too easy for them to make a mistake in this opening. That's why it's so good. Queen d5 wins the game immediately. It attacks f7, which would be checkmate. You see it, right? It attacks checkmate. Not only that, but it attacks the knight. If he moves the knight, we're also attacking the bishop. In other words, we have a triple threat that's practically impossible to stop. Here, the most common thing is that, for example, if they try to come here, we deliver checkmate, right? If they try to give us this check, super important. What happens if they try to give us this check? Which is the only thing we could say. We have to be careful here, right? They have a counterattack. Well, it's very simple. All we're gonna do is move the king. Because they check us, we move the king, but the threat is still ours. We're threatening checkmate, and we're threatening the knight. It's obvious they'd rather lose the knight, right? Than lose to checkmate. That's obvious. So what are they gonna do? Well, castle to stop the checkmate. Look how simple it's gonna be to finish this game. Now we take the knight. We're a piece up, but that's not the least of it. We're attacking a bishop that must retreat, for example, here to avoid problems. And now we're gonna continue with our development. But the idea of this development is that, yes, we're a piece up, but the attack will be totally unstoppable for the opponent. In other words, we're gonna end up delivering checkmate. As you can see, we forced the opponent to castle because we were threatening checkmate. And the only way to stop it was by castling. And now, once castled, he has no defensive pieces. That is, besides the extra piece, we have a totally brutal attack. For example, here, if he tries to play c6 to play d5, it really doesn't matter what they play, because we're going to play bishop d3, putting in this huge checkmate threat, forcing our opponent to weaken themselves even more. And here we have a spectacular plan. Coming with the bishop, attacking a queen that has to move, she can try to come to the defense, but it really doesn't matter to us, because we just want to place our bishop here, taking advantage of the weak squares. In other words, what's the plan going to be when you carry out this attack? Well, simply try to deliver checkmate to weaken the king, and once weakened, look at how the dark squares are. We put the bishop in, and now we're simply going to end up delivering checkmate. And we don't care, whatever they do to us. We move here to go for checkmate, and if they play this move, look at this wonder of humanity. Look at this, huh? Incredible, huh? Queen takes pawn. We sacrifice the queen. Double exclamation mark move. Totally impressive. And why do you sacrifice the queen, chess teacher? What do you have here if you have nothing? Well, if he captures the queen, which is obvious, he has to capture it, because if not, we're going to go in for mate. We simply go in with the knight, and as predicted, huh? Watch this, huh? We're going to deliver checkmate with the bishops and the knight. I'm sure you've never seen a checkmate here in the castled position with bishops and a knight. You tell me, the king can't move to any square, and whatever they do, we'd simply come to deliver checkmate with this bishop. Impressive. Remember the star move, d4? Now, let's see what happens if instead of capturing with the knight, they exchange these two pawns, which is also very common, okay? But first you should know one thing. A mistake that's been made against me several times, and this really is a pretty serious mistake. Even though it's obvious, some people still play it, right? We are attacking right here, and some people play knight to c6. You can already see that this is not a very good move at all. In fact, all of you are probably seeing it for yourselves already. However, if you don't know how to react, it's possible you'll make mistakes, play poorly, and they'll end up winning. What I mean is, this is very easy to punish. I'll explain it to you in 30 seconds. Look how easy it is. If they play knight to c6 against this opening, you just have to push forward. Don't capture though. Don't capture, because then they would be fine. Knight takes c5, they attack our bishop on c4, alright? We just push d5 and attack this knight. Oh, and by the way, I almost forgot. I have some really great news for all of you. I have started my own free newsletter. What is this about a free newsletter, chess teacher? Well, it is super simple. You can just subscribe for free, and every Sunday at 7 p.m. Spanish time, you are going to receive an email. Like I said, it's all completely free for those of you who want to go beyond these videos. You will just receive an email every Sunday at 7 p.m. Spanish time with exclusive information and extra content. Well, you will see, because I have worked really hard on it, and I think the most passionate chess fans will find it super, super, super fun. So there is no need to leave the video now. I will remind you at the end if you want, so no one misses it, but you'll find it in the first link in the description. The only thing you will have to do is enter the email address where you want it to be sent. It is that easy. So, now then, and here they have two common retreats. The best one is e7, but look at how they end up in a pretty bad spot. This bishop cannot get out, this knight cannot get back out, and that is the best move, okay? If they do this, just keep playing normally. You will have a huge space advantage. For example, knight to f3, and we keep on pressing. What are the two most popular ones? Well, one of the most popular is knight to d4, which is a huge mistake, because simply after c3, this knight is just trapped. We are going to win a knight, okay? See how easy it is? We push forward, and if it comes here, we chop it. And the other one, and the most common of all, which is knight to a5. And I am sure you will all say, well, this move looks really good, because not only am I escaping the threat, but I am also attacking this bishop. In actual practice, it is not such a bad move. However, we have an advantage here in, what do you call it? In initiative, and I am gonna explain how. We move the bishop to d3. Even if it seems like a waste of time, the opponent can keep on developing. What we are going to do is fight against this knight. First, c3, a multi-purpose move. It clears the path for the queen and mainly threatens b4, winning a piece with this fork, where they absolutely have to react by moving this bishop. And we do not care where they go, because b4 simply wins the knight. As you can see, if they go with knight to a5, they get into trouble because this knight is going to end up trapped. I mean, here we could even play knight to f3 to put pressure right here. They absolutely have to defend. And now, for example, b4, and look at the position. Not only are we up a piece, but we also have a position that is 1,000 times better. All right, chess teacher, let's get down to business. What happens if, when I play this wonderful opening, instead of capturing here or make it a huge mistake, they take this pawn, which I see a lot. Just a pawn exchange and that's it. Should I recapture with the queen? Careful, recapturing with the queen doesn't seem like the best idea, since knight to c6 simply develops a piece, gains a tempo, and we have to keep defending this spot, for example with the queen here. Doesn't seem like the best idea, right? So let's see, chess teacher, what do I do? Because besides them being up a pawn and me not being able to recapture it, they're threatening another one. I'm gonna end up down 2 pawns. What a garbage opening you're teaching me, chess teacher. Well no, it's very simple. Simply, when they capture, we're going to play knight to f3, and here we have a pretty interesting advantage, and I'll explain what it is. First of all, how should we react if they take this pawn and we're down 2 pawns? Now it's going to be time to capture this pawn with the queen. Why? Well, precisely because now they don't have time to play knight to c6 attacking our queen, since we'd capture this knight and with check to boot. Up a piece and with check on top of that. That's why they have to retreat this bishop. This knight, sorry, it doesn't help them to play here because we simply attack it with 2 pieces, right? And then we do this, and that's it. So they have to retreat this knight, and they have 2 squares, f6 and d6. Let's see how to play against both, because they're very simple. What happens if they play knight to d6? Simply, we're gonna castle, okay? Very low. Knight to c6, for example, attacking the queen, and we're not even gonna move it. Here we already have a position that's very easy to attack. Instead of moving the queen rook to 1, the rook joins the attack. Look at the development advantage we have in exchange for a pawn. Jet. They have to block no matter what. And when they block, we could already enter with the queen on g7 attacking the rook. And we're going to end up capturing this rook for sure, because no matter where it moves, we can enter with the other bishop, and this rook will end up being captured. And not only that, but look closely that, for example, if they capture this bishop, this would be checkmate. It can't be captured with the king because of the bishop, and it can't be captured with the bishop because we have the rook pinning it. Impressive. So when we take this pawn with the queen, we've seen that knight to d6 was a bad move. Knight to f6, however, is much better, alright? The good move, bishop to g5, pinning this knight. Well, here the truth is that we're putting on a lot of pressure, right? Bishop takes knight. We'd be doubling pawns because the queen is also putting on pressure. The most logical one, without a doubt, bishop to e7. Besides, this bishop can't come out through many other squares because here c3 would simply make it retreat, here we'd capture it, and here it simply wouldn't let this pawn advance. So bishop to e7 is the move they always use in this, or in this position. Plan, you must remember, knight to c3 and castle long, okay? What can they play here? Let's see, here they can play 1,000 things, but there'll be a moment when they'll play a logical move, knight to c6, which will develop this knight and attack our queen. They're gonna make this move against you sooner or later, right? Because they're never gonna wanna come out this light. So, knight to c6. Chess teacher, where should I put this queen? Well, this queen needs to go on the attack. Serious question, can they play h6? It doesn't help them at all because they aren't threatening to take the bishop either, because if they take it, we just take the rook, right? And it would be a disaster. So hex is useless here. For example, if they castle, then they could play h6, but we're not worried, right? Queenside castle. If you follow the plan, look how simple it is, huh? We castle queenside. And now we simply won't have to worry about, or rather, we won't have to struggle to advance these pawns and go attack here because the king is safe on the other side. That's why we can attack so strongly over here. What happens if they play h6, chess teacher? Well, in this case, we could even just sacrifice the bishop because the attack is unstoppable. And we have a very nice maneuver. For example, right here. If they try to... Now we're threatening to go all in, right? With the knight, with the bishop, with the rook. If they try to bring the knight over here, attack the queen, attack here with this double point, they simply lose the knight because we have this wonderful move taking advantage of this bishop on c4 that pins this f-pawn. This move would simply win the knight, so they can't come here with the knight. And if they go to a7, right, which also seems quite interesting, stopping any kind of jump with the knight since they occupy this square with the knight, the bishop, and the queen, then comes a fantastic maneuver, a very beautiful maneuver that we rarely see in chess. Normally, we move the rook along the 3rd rank, right? In this case, we move it along the 5th. We move the rook along the 5th rank. It's fine if we block the bishop because this attack is already unstoppable. Not only are we threatening this point here, but now what we want is to move the rook to this point. And you tell me, even if you're Magnus Carlsen, how you stop this attack here. Because no matter how much you move the knight, I'm going to checkmate you on the back rank. In other words, this threat of moving the rook through here would be checkmate no matter what. You can sacrifice the bishop if they play h6 against you once you've castled. Okay, something very important, friends, here. When they capture and we play knight to f3, we've seen what happened if they captured this pawn, which at first glance was totally free, right? They might capture, but they might not, chess teacher. Don't forget about that. If they don't capture, they have to be very careful, though, that we don't advance to pressure this knight, because it could be too dangerous, right? So here, if they don't capture, they're going to play d6, precisely to avoid this kind of advance. And here we have an attack that, for the engines, well, they'll be able to stop it, but I have yet to find a human being who is able to stop it with authority. We have the typical attack, right? Like, it's a fried liver attack, but in this case, much more powerful, since the lines, sometimes, depending on how we use them, aren't more powerful than others, because there are different tempos of advantage. For example here, how can they defend this point that we're attacking with bishop and knight? Well, the truth is they only have one move, since, for example, bishop here wouldn't work because we take it with 2 pieces, right? So the only one they have is to play d5. Yeah, it's true. Here it's just an exchange, but now knight takes pawn is a serious mistake. Knight takes pawn is a serious mistake. Many of you are thinking here that this would be similar to the fried liver, and you'd play knight takes f7 here, and after king takes, we'd come in with the queen and all that, right? Well, no, there's a much stronger move here. Short castle, we bring another piece into the attack. And why is castling so strong, Gal? Well, simply, for example, because we're threatening rook e1, and they have to block, for example, with bishop e7. However, now it works. Now knight takes f7 actually works. Once we've castled, it's much stronger. Why? Now we're making this double attack, right? So, well, they're forced to capture if they don't want to lose material. And once they capture, we just come in with the queen. Queen h5 check. If the king moves, we take here. If they play g6 first, we can take here first, right? Giving check, and here the most common move is to go here with the king, although simply no matter what they do, we're going to end up winning. In this case, simply bishop h3, Bishop h6 check, and when the king moves, queen g4, or sorry, queen g5 mate. Playing with the board reversed is making the coordinates hard for me. Forgive me. Let's see. Chess teacher, I can't leave this video without you explaining the following to me. Here, after this opening we're using, right, of d4, which honestly I don't know the name of. If anyone knows it, leave it for me in the comments because I don't know what happens. We've seen all the variations, we're in the exchange variation, and now we play knight 3. We've seen the following, capturing. We've seen d6, but we still need to see what happens if they let us advance this pawn, because you told me a moment ago they must play d6 to avoid this advance. But what if they don't avoid it? For example, bishop c5 looks like a super good move. So we're going to advance, this is obvious. This knight, if it comes here, doesn't seem like the best option, because we could simply attack it with the queen, with the bishop, and it would have to retreat, and it has no good retreats. We're probably going to end up winning it, right? So, for example, it can come over here to attack this pawn. It seems much more logical. Very well, what are we going to do when it comes here? Well, very simple. We simply kick it out and it has two options. One, retreat to here, where we could simply capture it and double pawns, or even better, come with the bishop to attack this queen. And this would already be trouble because they'd have to sacrifice here, the king would open up, double attack, it would be a mess. Or the other option they have, which I've come across it, which is knight takes f2, thinking, okay, I have two extra pawns. Black says, right? In exchange for a knight, however, now I have strong discovered attacks, right? What happens if they play this against? Where should you go with the king? Because you only have one good square. Remember this well, okay? If some cocky player sacrifices the knight to try for counterplay, the only good square is to come forward here. Very simple. They're simply going to exchange this pawn so as not to be left a pawn down. And now we have two pawns for the piece. That is, we have a material advantage, but not only that, as much as the king seems exposed, they can't attack it with anything. And not only that, but we are the ones who are attacking. For example, now we're threatening bishop takes f7 check, and when they capture, a discovered attack on this bishop on c5, winning another pawn now, right? This one here. Yeah, so here, what do they have to do? Well, they must castle. And once they castle, we just jump in with the knight, and our threats are obvious. We're threatening this checkmate, and not only that, but we're also threatening over here. So when everything is exchanged, we're back to the same thing. Discovered attack here, bishop takes rook check, king takes f7, and queen takes c5, winning this bishop. Simply, we'd come in with the other rook, with the bishop, with the queen, and this would end up being checkmate. But not only that, but look, we have two rooks, and our opponent only has one. So we have a rook in exchange for two pawns. No, in exchange for just one pawn, meaning we have a completely massive advantage. Now then, chess teacher, I want to learn more no matter what for free. Tell me about this newsletter thing. Well, it's very simple, and honestly, it's gonna be a lot of work for me to prepare a whole newsletter every week for you guys to have, but it's clear that I owe you everything and more. Why? Because you watch my videos daily, and your support's incredible. So the only thing you have to do is just for those who are interested. If you're not interested, it's absolutely fine. Simply, those of you who want to learn more and more for free, well, you go to the link I'm leaving in the description. Very simple. I'll leave the newsletter down here. You go in and just put in your email. Mind you, be careful. They're gonna send you a welcome email, okay? Sometimes you might not receive it. It's likely in the spam folder or the promotions folder. But don't worry, because once you find it, I'll show you right there in the welcome email how you should go about moving that email to the primary inbox. So it's super simple. I hope you join. We'll see each other there every week and we can chat. We'll have a good interaction for free, and I think you're gonna love it. I hope you loved this video. See you in there, and see you tomorrow as well in the next video, friends. Goodbye.